Fear. The other four-letter word that starts with the letter F. An emotion that determines if you stay where you are and grow roots like a tree, or do you begin to make decisions that could possibly alter the course of your life? Because we are living during a time where we may be bombarded by people who doubt us, or even worse, make us doubt ourselves. Over the past year of growing and sharing our experiences on YouTube, a question that continues to come up is, aren't you afraid of blank? And that blank is everything from running out of fuel, to bears, to isolation. All too often, YouTube channels have romanticized nomadic and minimalistic lifestyles, and we all have different realities. Today, Jim and I conquer one of the many fears we have faced with on this road to full-time van life and exploration. Today's journey transports us back in time to the gold rush days of Alaska, to one of the richest gold mining areas on the Kenai Peninsula in the early 1900s. Located 87 miles south of Anchorage is the small community of Hope, Alaska. In the summer months, this town is usually bustling with hikers, campers, cyclists, and fishermen. However, due to the current state of our world, Jim and I have and will continue to avoid contact in small communities such as Hope and avoid exploring the actual town. We took a turn down Palmer Creek Road towards one of the most breathtaking off-road drives in Alaska that leads to an even more stunning hike to sparkling waterfalls and lakes. The Palmer Creek Road climbs from lush and mature spruce forest to alpine tundra and brush. And the most noticeable animals along this road is the variety of birds. Sparrows, warblers, and thrushes. We also saw several rock ptarmigan feeding in the grasses along the side of the road. 6 miles into the drive, we passed Coeur d'Alene Campground packed full of tent campers and hikers. The road narrowed and signs indicated that large vehicles were prohibited, and we didn't consider ourselves large, so we proceeded. The road isn't recommended for large RVs or trailers, and high ground clearance is also recommended past mile 6. Following along what felt like an old wagon trail, we continued to climb Palmer Creek Road towards the ruins of the Sweatman mining camp. We took our time on the road knowing that we were spending several days in this area, stocked full of food, water, and diesel. All we needed to do was find the perfect place to call home.
Thank you.
Are we ready to go do this?
Let's do it.
There's 2 lakes. The first lake is about a mile. We were told 2 things. Be prepared to get your feet wet. And what was the other thing?
It gets steep for the second one.
Yeah, second lake it gets steep for. And most of the people we've seen going up this way have trekking poles. We do not have trekking poles, so we'll see how it goes.
Save it for another day.
We'll come back. Okay. It's a lot easier going down than it is going up.
Today we want to take a moment and talk about fears. Fears are a reoccurring topic that seems to come up in our comments. And the two primary ones being, are we afraid of animals? Being out in the backcountry as much as we are. And number two, are we ever worried about breaking down in the middle of nowhere? So we're going to talk about those fears and some fears that we really do have while doing this, that we're just working towards overcoming.
One of the fears that I had when we first started was, what would our friends and family think? I think that came from, it being a former dream of living in a van and traveling the United States from when I was younger, and I think I was afraid that my friends and family might judge what we were going to do. I feel that if we would have told our friends and family that we were going to travel the United States in a motorhome, it may have been a little bit more acceptable, but as soon as we said van, it was a mixed bag. Some people would say, isn't that what all the cool kids are doing? And others that knew us really well were like, you guys are gonna rock this, you'll have so much fun. But it really was a fear of what people think. I've gotten over it. I don't care what people think anymore. We're doing what we love to do, and we're living our best life. And I think that many of you out there can probably understand that fear of what will your friends and family think. And so far, I think that those who are closest to us have accepted it.
One of my fears going into this is we haven't owned motorhomes, or RVs or vans or anything like this. And for me, that was kind of stepping outside of my comfort zone. I'm a tent camper. I love being in nature. The van just made it a whole lot better. We've learned over the past year, taking things apart, insulating, and the reason we've been doing that is so that we become more familiar with the interior of the van, understanding what does what, where things are, and how things work. So for me, that's made me a whole lot more comfortable in stepping outside of that comfort zone and trying something new.
Another one of my fears is, what if we hate it? What if we put all of this time and money into a lifestyle that we didn't know if we would like or not? What if we don't get along in this small space? What if we start fighting and we find out things about each other that we didn't necessarily know before? What if this was going to ruin our relationship? There was all these what ifs when we went into it, and I think the major what if was, what if we hate it? My advice to you with that would be, go out and maybe rent a van, maybe rent a motorhome, maybe rent something and get an idea of what you like. None of those fears were a reality. It turns out that it actually strengthened our relationship. We love each other even more than we did a year ago, even more than we did 10 years ago. It's been really good for our relationship. Another one of our major fears in the very beginning was getting sick. What if we come down with the flu or colds and we're not anywhere near medical facilities and we need antibiotics? Sometimes I'm afraid of getting sick, but since COVID started and we've been spending so much time away from other people, this is probably the healthiest that Jim and I have ever been. I haven't had a cold in a really long time. Also, getting sick and being in that small of a space, how would we get along with each other? But getting sick is one of my major fears.
Getting sick is one of Cynthia's fears, but for me, it's one of us getting injured. When we're out hiking like this in the backcountry, and all it takes is one slip, one fall, and we have to worry about getting the other person out. Unfortunately, we can't live by fear, so we go and do it anyways. But that is one thing that's always in the back of our mind, is how are we going to help each other if we do have a fall or if we do get injured.
The other fear that we should be afraid of, that we're not necessarily afraid of, is animals. And there's two animals at this time of year that we should be aware of, and that's moose and bear. And this time of year, moose and bear have just had their babies, so you don't want to startle them and spook them. That's when you're most likely to have a negative encounter with a moose or a bear. right now we're not too worried about it. We're armed. I'm always carrying pepper spray. I know how to use it, and even while we're walking, I tend to think about the breeze, where it's at. Sometimes it's all around you, so you have to be careful and you have to know how to use pepper spray. We are also armed. I'm armed. You can't see it. Jim's armed. I'm not sure if you can see it. We are prepared, but you just have to be careful. You don't want to startle the animals. You want to make a lot of noise as you're on trails like this. Is animals a fear? No, it's just a matter of being aware. This is their territory. We're in their territory. Just be prepared.
We're always looking for them, and we're always disappointed that we don't come across them.
We do this all the time, and we have yet to encounter a moose or a bear. The most we've seen in the past couple of days is birds.
The final fear is, are we worried about the van breaking down? It's really not something that we let go through our minds very often. I think the only thing that we're worried about is if in the middle of winter the heat goes off or heat stops working. We're not really worried about having mechanical issues while we're out in the middle of nowhere, because eventually someone's going to come across you.
There's only a few main roads in Alaska, and even when you're on roads like this,
you do see people.
you do. Tell us your fears in our comment section down below. We want to hear what your fears are, and maybe you could help somebody else with advice overcome their fears. I guess another thing that we tend to worry about is more of a concern than a fear, is damaging the Revel and it costing a lot more than we can afford to fix it.
We are cautious about taking it through trees so it doesn't get scratched up.
I have a funny story about that. We actually were on a road that was sort of off-road, and it was a twig. It really wasn't a tree, it was sort of a twig coming out the side, and Jim was just like, I'm so afraid that that's going to scratch up the van. And we're kind of at that point where we're trying to decide, do we just scratch it up and just have fun, or do we try to minimize the damage? I don't know. We haven't decided. I think we push the Revel a lot further than most people who own four-wheel drive vans do. And then there's also people out there who push it a lot farther than we do.
It's all through experience and learning. Sometimes we have to take the risk, and sometimes we choose not to take the risk.
And speaking of fears, you guys, I was afraid to actually come down this road. We've been putting it off for a while because I kept telling Jim I'm not sure I want to take the van down there. We've been back here on our motorcycles, had a blast, came back here and hiked, but didn't go as far as we did today. And when we came back here before, for some reason my memory of it was a lot worse than it was. And now that we've done a lot worse than this road, I'm ready to take on even more. After we came to the end of it, I told Jim when we got to the end of this road, I hate to admit it, but I was actually afraid to do this trip. I was afraid that the Revel was too wide and that we would have to back up for like a quarter of a mile to find a spot to turn around. But we did it.
We conquered our own fear.
Every day is conquering a fear for sure. Right now my fear is the wind is going to blow this camera over. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, you guys. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and hit that notification bell to hear and see future videos.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Stay happy.
Stay healthy.
Stay safe.
We'll see you soon.
As we patiently wait to see what's going to happen in our world next, we continue to explore places around Alaska that are both familiar and foreign. And I'd like to leave you with the beautiful words of one of my favorite poets, Robert Service. There's gold, and it's haunting and haunting. It's luring me on as of old, yet it isn't the gold that I'm wanting so much as just finding the gold. It's the great, big, broad land way up yonder. It's the forests where silence has lease. It's the beauty that thrills me with wonder. It's the stillness that fills me with peace.